All right, we have ready to present Ottawa University, Arizona. And their question is, the National Bureau of Economic Research has indicated that without substantial intervention, the U.S. will be unable to compete with China in the global semiconductor market. The President has charged you with developing a trade policy that ensures that the U.S. will have access to semiconductor development and production for reasons of national security. What interventions or mix of interventions would you recommend to the President that accomplish this goal while doing the least amount of damage to the economy as a whole? The floor is yours.
Good morning, everybody. Jacob, Caleb, and Alexis. So I've thought about this a little bit before because I was able to see TSMC go up from the ground up. I was a pipe tradesman. I was a plumber. So being involved in that was pretty important to me. And I think when we look back in time and we see how things were, and we see where things are going, that's a pretty big deal. And the fact that we get to have that impact, that's the thing that we're going to be talking about. So today we kind of developed this plan on the best thing that we could do to reduce our need to rely on China and to also make this the most structurally sound proposal that we have. So that's what he's going to be explaining now.
Hi, judges. So we believe that by direct investment from the US government as a majority into the semiconductor industry in developing manufacturing areas such as the West Valley in Arizona and parts of inland California, we will compete with China. So we are proposing so we already have invested as the government $80 billion into the semiconductor industry, helping areas like Arizona and the West Valley. So we're proposing a further 20% increase, therefore $16 billion into TSMC's semiconductor industry. Now TSMC already operates in the West Valley, but also in Taiwan. And due to unstable trade relations with Taiwan and the Chinese government, and their already unstable politics, we propose that by shifting Taiwanese workers into the US, we will be able to compete with China. Similarly, we also are proposing an incremental 10% tariff on Chinese exports.
Yeah, so looking at this through maybe a little classical utilitarian lens, we know that the eventual goal will be to kind of lower the tariffs so that we can kind of work on our free trade. So we kind of propose that over the course of maybe 5 years to increase tariffs on China by 20%, and matching that with our direct investments, like what we're going to be investing into our own. So we're doing that incrementally, like 4% annually. So we'll kind of increment slowly. So as we're putting the tariff on them, we're going to invest back into our own economy and our own semiconductor industry. So after 5 years, we're going to reduce the tariff exponentially. So it'll go from maybe 20% to 12%, then to 8%, into 6, and 2, and 0, and then we're going to welcome China back in. But just our industry will be just so much stronger because we've invested into it.
So along with that, we also recognize that there is going to be some danger to that. Some of that danger could be when China realizes what our long-term proposal is, that they start to increase tariffs on a more dramatic end on their side. We have to be ready for that, and that could be something that's potential. The way we try to avoid that is by those incremental tariffs applied over the course of 5 to 10 years, and then gradually bringing it back down once our market is strong enough to sustain that. Doing this gives us time to invest into our country, gives us time to invest into the development that we need for these products to be created here rather than relying on outsourcing them.
Also, to piggyback off that, it adheres to the classical liberalism structure that the US will be trying to follow, because it encourages, though it could be seen as a quasi-protectionist policy, it actually liberalizes free trade and the individual liberties, because it boosts, it increases workers, increases the number of jobs in the West Valley in Arizona, and then at the same time allows the aggregate income going to rise, which is something we know that classical liberalism and free trade has done for countries globally, domestically, and everywhere else in the world. What our proposal could also face is obviously the problem with Taiwan and China and their political relations. Though they are unstable, that's why we are not seeking a complete brain drain from Taiwan, yet we are seeking to employ new workers and at the same time protect TSMC as a semiconductor industry in total. So this would be not only the US government intervening and putting a direct investment, we could have later down the line, after the 5 years are done and the exponential drop-off has happened, we could then see help from the Taiwanese government and ensure stability on both ends. We also know that just as a geographical stance, that Taiwan does lie on an earthquake plain where they are very susceptible to catastrophes and danger. So when looking at the logistics and the operations management of having both a plant in Taiwan and then also in Arizona, that disparity significantly reduces the catastrophic risk that that semiconductor industry in Taiwan goes under, and then we are left with no choice but to completely rely on China. So by diversifying the risk and taking investment to the US, we can significantly lower the risk, raise tariffs the tiniest bit and then drop them to nothing to adhere to classical liberalism, and then we can aggregate the growth of the US manufacturing sector.
And one final thing to note is that we're already seeing this shortage play out nowadays. Data centers are either delayed in opening dates, they're getting canceled because of the equipment that we need to be brought over from China. When I was in the trades, we would have special tradesmen that their job was to go and do tool installs to install this equipment. And it's not cheap equipment, it's not something that we can just go and get small little parts here and there if something happens to break. So this is already something that's in the forecast of us needing an ability to resource this with our own time, or with our own resources.
Yeah, I mean, I think it should also kind of focus a little bit on the amount of people that we get. Like, if you guys were able to watch our little video, we kind of talk about how the local markets grow so much, and just kind of push. There's like 4,000 workers, trade workers that was what you mentioned, that work there, and just there's a lot of open jobs, So I think it opens up our little local market as well.
Yeah, and it just provides a better offshoot for workers that do not have anything to do with semiconductor industries, but are indirectly affected by it. So then people that make like extra parts for computers, people that make cases, make extra accessories, it boosts up everything else alongside it, with semiconductors being the main driver.
This time, you guys have any questions for us?
Questions? Why give the money to them? Why not Intel or some American company?
Well, if we were to giving the money to a US-based company, will prop up our own manufacturers. Now, when we look at Apple, for instance, they've shifted from Intel to using their own chips. So we also see like the M1 chips, the A18, however chips they use, whichever chips they use. So Apple, as a supplier and producer of this, by giving the money to companies that are not Intel, also will indirectly help our country, will directly help our country, the US, but then also reduce the gain that China sees having Intel on their side.
It also creates more of a competitive environment for the two companies, rather than having one company be the all source for everything related committed to it, it gives them that competition, and which ends up being better for consumers.
Prevents a monopolistic competition from forming, which I believe monopolistic competition is around 20 to 25%. Not purely a monopoly, but we do not want Intel to be heading in that direction, if not already, and then becoming a monopoly for semiconductors when that is exactly what we oppose to do. But it also increases free trade.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
I really like the way you guys thought about, we're gonna do these two things, direct investment and also this tariff, and then you thought about what China's gonna do, and then what we're gonna do in response to what we think China's going to do, right? So that's fantastic. I wonder about the combination of the direct investment and the tariff. So it's a 10% tariff on Chinese semiconductors or Chinese goods as a whole. I'm not sure which one, but either way, if the goal of the investment and the tariffs is to make TSMC semiconductors profitable, and I mean, what if the response from China is something like, okay, well, we're gonna subsidize our exports and make them even cheaper? So my question to you is, if these two things at the values that you've put forward aren't sufficient to accomplish the goal given China's response, are you open to increasing those tariffs even further, or increasing the direct investment even further? Or so is it we'll do this, and if this isn't good enough, we can do more, or we'll do this, and if this isn't good enough, then we just buy semiconductors from China?
So I think leaning into that direct investment side of it is kind of be our best option. If we go into a back and forth thing with China, they can do that until they're at 0% ROI and they make nothing, but they're okay with it because they're still damaging us. I think if we continue to lean into our production, and whether that means we have to lean into more money on Kickstarters or getting small businesses to be able to support larger companies, then I think that's where we should lean our money into, and not get into a back and forth thing with them.
I also think, to add on to that, with our we already invested 80 billion, like I said, and then to supplement that, we proposed an extra 20%, 16 billion. So with that supplementation, we could, if there's back and forth argument with China, we could like have a pendulum swing percentage with Taiwan, so that we could, at the same time, if we need to buy our semiconductors, instead of giving it to China, we could give in to Taiwan and invest in that plane, and then even it out. So maybe Taiwan gets the 12 billion, we put in 4 billion, and then we leverage that according to how China may respond to our tariffs.
Okay, thank you.